Stirling's always been known as the gateway to the Scottish Highlands, and seldom has that been more appropriate than today. For 36 teams of 4, this is the starting point of an epic 5-day journey that's going to take them through mountainous terrain that can only have been designed for adventure and testing the limits of human endurance. Welcome to Scotland, and welcome to the Adidas Terrex Adventure 2012. The race starts at 8:45 on Monday morning, which is in 7 minutes' time. For those that complete the course, they'll return to Stirling sometime on Friday evening. In the meantime, they'll be racing over 600 kilometres of Scottish wilderness, racing 24 hours a day. For many, this is going to be the hardest week of their lives.
I thought I had quite tough hands.
We've had a red line since the beginning.
Just walking on a compass bearing, hoping we didn't come off a cliff.
We've had 4 hours of sleep, if that, over the 4 days.
This year's race is part of the prestigious Adventure Racing World Series, and the course has been designed by someone who knows a thing or two about it, former world champion Nick Gracie. Now, Nick, give us some idea what these guys have got coming up.
They've just got an absolutely amazing week ahead of them. It's Monday morning, they're going to be leaving Stirling Castle here and heading into the Scottish Highlands. They're going to do about 300 kilometres on their mountain bikes, 100 kilometres in Canadian canoes and 200 kilometres on their feet. Lots of highlights along the way, lots of canyoning, climbing, whitewater rapids in the canoes. And we've got some world-class athletes here, a few teams that are going to the World Championships in a month's time, and some teams that have never done this before. So for everybody, they're going to have a really great adventure.
36 teams of 4 have entered, with Ireland, France, Denmark and Canada amongst the nations lined up at Stirling Castle for the start. The route is designed to be achievable by all, with teams permitted to take shortcuts on specified sections in exchange for time penalties. Those who want to win will have to complete the lot, and Anthony Emmett's Mountain Hardware will be a quartet to watch, as are those racing with Tom Gibbs. Shod in bright orange footwear, Team Adidas Terrex are former world champions. This event is part of the Adventure Racing World Series, and the winner here will be awarded a place in the final in France. This race begins with a charge out of the castle towards the historic battlefields that surround Stirling. Stirling Bridge was where William Wallace's men defeated the English invaders, and its ancient stonework carries the teams over the River Forth towards the wilderness, where they'll spend the next 5 days.
And just to get into that remoteness and still be on the British Isles is going to be very exciting, and it'll really give us a sense of adventure, very much that we're just going to be controlling our own destiny, and if anything goes wrong, we're going to need to look after ourselves.
The Canadians, Team Salomon Running Free, are also here with high ambitions.
We're gunning to do the whole course, which will give us, a good position. That's our goal. We'll push hard until the race doesn't allow us to kind of do so in such a way, but we're from Canada. We've been doing this a long time. We're used to snow, wind, cold. We'll probably see all of it here this week.
The weather, however, remains perfect as they approach the first checkpoint at the Wallace Monument. FGS Superberry, followed by the fluorescent-footed Nicola McLeod of Team Adidas Terrex, are first there. Nicola and Bruce Duncan are regulars in the team that relies heavily on the strategic expertise of Tom Gibbs.
The 3 of us have raced together for a long time. Really makes a big difference. Chris is sort of new into the team, but he's a fantastic racer on his own. Very, very strong on foot and on bike, and navigating as well. But yeah, Nicola and Tom and myself have raced together many, many times, so it just makes life easier. Less questions have to be asked because you know that somebody's doing the job they're going to do.
On road sections, drafting is a vital part of working together and saving energy for the mountains ahead. Tom takes his turn from new member Chris Hope, who so far is looking strong amongst his Premier League teammates. Team Mountain Hardware are a few minutes down in the early stages, but in a race lasting 5 days, hours can be made up or lost with a single route choice or sleep. It's all about pacing, strategy and eliminating mistakes, qualities that Anthony Emmett's team will need to call on in their battle with Adidas Terrex.
Adidas they have a squad of good athletes, and some in that squad are some ex-world champions who've always performed in their various sports. So that's their strength. Our strength over that, and has proved why we've done as well as we have, is our team is a team. We have no substitutes. We race together. We know each other inside out, and because of that sort of situation, we do really well.
The chasing teams are bunching up and beginning to work together as the A84 takes them away from Stirling. Up ahead, Adidas Terrex will be the first to find a little surprise that their former teammate Nick Gracie has planned for them. The course takes the teams past some sites of historical events, although the stories aren't always historically accurate. One of the first checkpoints for the teams on their quest is Doune Castle, and it was, of course, the first stopping point for Monty Python's King Arthur in his quest for the Holy Grail. For our guys, there's no time for drama. It's just check in and get out. They didn't come across the Holy Grail, but Adidas Terrex are the first to find the checkpoint and resume their quest. Team Endurance Life and FGS Nectar marching behind. As they approach the first night of the race, the course takes them from Doune Castle to the only lake in Scotland. So called because in a land of lochs, it was the only one named by an Englishman. It's certainly a scenic route, and it seems as though all the tourism is getting to the leaders, who after a furious start are settling into a leisurely, almost sightseeing pace. The other teams now have them in their sights as Nicola takes over in front for Adidas Terrex.
This team's quite nice because there's a fair amount of biking, and you can even out the bike because whoever's the weaker at the time can draft. On foot we can even ourselves out by changing the weight in our bags, and in extremis we can attach a bungee to whoever's going the slowest. I think I'll be slowest on foot, certainly in the first couple of days.
Behind them, FGS Nectar, Endurance Life and Mountain Hardware are bunching up and working together in a peloton. There's absolutely no rule against that.
Pick it up a little, we'll rotate it.
As Adidas Terrex will know very well. Taking it too easy perhaps, Tom. Soon they're swallowed up in the pack, but seemingly still happy to see the bright side of life as the journey goes on. It's a route full of surprises as the teams arrive at Lake of Menteith to switch their bikes for boats. The race becomes a regatta as the teams cross to Inchmahome Priory in the centre of the lake for the next checkpoint. Anthony Emmett is pulling hard at the oars to stay in touch with Adidas Terrex. The race is on again. And it's doubtful the Augustinian monks who occupied the island ever moved around with this kind of urgency. Then the mountain biking continues. The terrain is becoming less civilized and more unpredictable as the teams head through the forestry towards the open mountains. It's an unrelenting course, and the first signs of strain are beginning to show. Sally Azan is leading the way for Mountain Hardware. She made her adventure racing debut in this event 2 years ago and finished second as an individual in last year's Coast to Coast. Racing with this team, she's learned the ropes fast and is setting the pace for the 4 at the moment.
I'm definitely the one that when the going gets tough, I'm the one who's going, come on, you know, it can't be that bad, you know, if it doesn't break us, it'll make us stronger, let's keep going, you know, I'm quite good at the chirpy side of things, definitely.
Nice and steady. Steady Eddie.
It's all steady Eddie at this stage, but that's about to change for everyone.
As the race progresses, the racing element reduces and the adventure starts. For many of these teams, the adventures will start when they suffer their first setback, and that's when the true adventure racing starts. Because for everyone, a shorter race, it's all pure racing. There's not much adventure, but on a big race like this, once you start getting those hills at 2 o'clock in the morning, it's raining, it's cold, you've got to learn how to deal with that, and that's where the adventure comes through to it.
This being Scotland and not Holland, there are few flat sections on the course. The difficulty is ramping up, and soon those wide forest roads will become single track, then open mountainside and bog as the teams head for transition, where they'll drop the bikes and head on to the slopes of Ben Lawers for the first of the trekking stages. Most teams will be hoping to get there before dark. It won't be easy as the bike stage gets slower and slower and more demanding as the teams are forced from pedalling to pushing. Adidas Terrex are having to work hard on a stage that is punishing for the bikes as well as the bodies. Even the terrain underneath you can't be relied upon.
That looks like a bog. Don't trust this. And rightly so. I didn't trust that one.
There's no sign of any team close behind at the moment. Mountain Hardware might be expected in second, but are a long way off. FGS Nectar are in runner-up position and ploughing on well.
Bit of a hiker bike through here, but there's a road just down there, so we're back on back flowing again soon. It's a beautiful place. Scottish weather's being nice to us today, which is great. It's so nice to start a race in the sun. Hopefully it'll last all race, but I suspect not.
It's a bit of a tricky track, this one. You don't know when you can back it or when you have to run it. Suddenly there's this little steam down and you don't see it. So you have to be careful watching out where you're going here. Oh, I'm going to try my bike now.
Eventually Mountain Hardware do appear. They're about 2 hours behind and struggling with mechanical, not physical problems.
Check spoke's gone. When I spoke I was changing gear and the chain went into the spoke, took a spoke out, punctured my tyre, and it's broken, pulled out the thing here, so we've got a bit of a problem with this bike. But we'll just keep going. Keep moving.
Once they get to transition, they'll have the chance to work on the bike, though the race clock never stops and no outside assistance, such as a mechanic, is allowed. On the southern end of the Highlands, the National Nature Reserve of Ben Lawers presents wild mountain landscapes as the teams reach the summits of a string of Munros. It's perhaps not anyone's first choice for a place to spend the night, but that's what most teams are facing before they resume their journey on the River Tay in the morning. Adidas Terrex have upped the pace to try and outwit what the course planner has put in store for them. He wouldn't be at all surprised to see his former teammates pushing on hard.
Probably the most important thing in a team is you need a very good navigator, someone who just literally almost enjoys looking at maps and map reading. That's a real thing. They have to have a passion for it. You need a good captain who can keep the team motivated, keep going. When you get low, is a person that lifts the whole team and get them going. And then also you need pack horses in the team, the guys that can carry the heavy loads, carry the tent, carry the big first aid kits. So you need a bit of muscle, a bit of brawn, and you definitely need a lot of brains.
Been a hard old day.
We're on a bit of a charge now, because we know the more we can do in daylight on this, it's worth so much in the bank. And get a bit of a sleep after this as well.
Knowing when to up the pace is part of the game. They could be the first and only team to see the summits in daylight, avoiding the need for tricky night navigation and perhaps buying some time for that essential shut-eye. The pressure is greater on the chasing teams. Mountain Hardwear need to make up time and can't afford another mishap or mistake, especially running off route in a place like this.
Whoa, 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 all right, right.
For the teams behind, there will be less and less visibility, more and more room for error and fatigue.
There could be. I mean, it's been following the ridge line, right?
I think so.
All right, should we do that then?
Been in lots of conditions before where it's kind of silly, but we keep our head, we don't get too flustered. We hope we're organized. When the going gets really ugly, that's when I think we'll be okay.
And on the first night of the race, making progress is challenging. It's difficult too for any team to know where their rivals are and what position they're in. Lucky for us, the electronic checkpoints don't lie. While many teams are stumbling off Ben Lawes, the leaders are preparing to canoe on Loch Tay.
The end of day one effectively, but you're fairly confident.
Well, I mean, there's still a long way to go. Lots of things can happen, injuries, accident, mechanicals. We're just going to play it by ear and just do our best. But you know, it's gone to plan at the moment. We just got to keep on doing it.
It's been a well-executed race so far, no less than expected, but Mountain Hardwear have beaten the odds perhaps and made up time, arriving at Loch Tay an hour later.
So we've got 3 days ahead of us, so let's see what happens. That's adventure racing, isn't it? Who knows what will happen?
Especially when you're the owner of a cafe that happens to be on the race course. After a hearty meal, some of the customers will sleep anywhere. Any sleep, though, will be brief.
I should think if we got 15-20 minutes each, that's probably it. But we hadn't planned to sleep tonight anyway. Tonight anyway, so that was a bonus.
Is it going to plan so far?
No, we've dropped lots of checkpoints, and it's not going at all to plan. So it's tough, really tough.
But we're hanging in there, fantastic, beautiful scenery, really amazing stuff up there. And now we got a lovely paddle on a nice flat lake through the night, so we'll see the sunrise hopefully at the end.
There won't be any chance to view the scenery as the teams paddle 20 kilometres down Loch Tay, though it will be getting light by the time the stage moves on to the rougher waters of the River Tay at Kenmore. The 19-kilometre section on the River Tay will be tough, and for safety reasons the teams can't take it on in the dark. At first light, the two leading teams, Mountain Hardwear and Adidas Terrex, head for the white water together. Perhaps Tom Gibbs is happy to trail his rivals and let them test the torrents, but Mountain Hardwear are the first into the rapids, with Sally Azan and Kim Collison in the first boat. Alex Pilkington and Anthony Emmett are in the second, but they're the first to hit trouble. The leading boat got further, but will be just as wet. Adidas Terrex are next. With even the most experienced of teams taking a dip, it will be a difficult test for some of those following. For once, the top teams pay the price of pushing too hard. Those prepared to go with the flow and no faster will stay dry. That's not what you want to start your day, and it's going to be a long, cold one for both leading quartets after this. Staying warm and dry is vital, but at times it's almost impossible. You just have to cope with whatever the race throws at you. After dragging the canoes to the transition, they'll have to build the bikes for the next stage. The race crews will transport the bikes between transitions on behalf of the teams, but they have to be packed away in boxes, and there are certainly no pit crews at this pit stop. Concentration and skill is needed when you're cold, wet and sleep deprived. Time is easily lost. The organisers do lay on heated indoor areas to get warm and dry, but the race clock is always running, and any respite is only ever temporary. Soon they're back on their way to face another challenge. The teams have been out on the ground for about 30 hours, and most of them have had absolutely no rest whatsoever. Now, just as exhaustion sets in, the course setters have upped the ante. This is a compulsory section down the Falls of Brewer, 1,500 metres of narrow canyon. It's going to be a thrilling ride, but the real danger is the cold. Join us after the break to find out how they get on. Welcome back to the Adidas Terrex Adventure 2012. Now, the next stage of this epic adventure across the Highlands of Scotland is right behind me. Almost a mile of canyoning down the Falls of Brewer. Abseils, plunge pools, slides and bitterly cold water await. And the only way to find out what it's like is to join the teams. Adidas Terrex and Mountain Hardware are still leading the race despite their capsizes in the River Tay earlier.
So you've really been for a swim, Sally?
Proper swim. Yeah, proper swim. I suffered, man, for it.
Did you? Why?
I got really, really cold. So when we got on our bikes, I lost it. But then got it back.
Adidas Terrex are the first to head for the falls. Even this relentless foursome can look apprehensive at times. Team Mountain Hardware's Anthony Emmett's done a lot of this over the years, and at first seems as happy as a kid in a water park, albeit one where the heating is broken. But as the descent continues, there are worrying signs for his team. No one finds this easy. Well, that is fantastic. I've only gone about halfway down the canyon and already I'm starting to get a bit cold. The only way the teams are going to warm up is to get back on their bikes. They've got another 450 kilometers to go. I'm off to the cafe for a hot chocolate. Adidas Terrex are through safely.
Bit chilly actually. Long time in cold water. Glad we've got all this on.
Anthony Emmett is warm enough, but an injury sustained earlier when he fell out of his canoe is causing concern. Let's hope that it's not worse than it looks. Another worry for the team is that Sally, after warming up once, has frozen again. Keeping up with the pace set by Adidas Terrex is getting harder stage by stage. The next bike section is 87 kilometres that takes the teams through Glen Tilt to Mar Lodge, where they'll be on foot for an orienteering section. It's a grueling ride, and it's almost the end of the second day when the leading team arrives to study the maps for the orienteering and take in the lodge's unique highland atmosphere. Even the irrepressible Adidas Terrex team are showing signs of fatigue.
That's 18 kilometres, but flat.
A little bit tired on the bike at one point, and then I kind of perked up and then a little bit tired again, and now just a bit daunted having looked at that.
The teams will return here as soon as they've found all the checkpoints on this stage. With two separate courses, the teams split into pairs and clear one set of checkpoints each. Adidas Terrex's strategic push on day one means that once again they reach a difficult section in daylight. They know exactly how much harder and slower orienteering is in the dark. Mountain Hardware should be able to cope with the navigation, but the midges are a different factor.
They're just incredible, and I had sunglasses on and they'd swoop in behind and just sting my eyelids. So you're there with midges in your helmet, you're there down your top, you're there with them in your eyes. Nothing you can do, so just got to ride on.
And they have to keep on running now if they're to stop the leaders getting too far out of sight. But if they push too hard, they'll make mistakes with no landmarks for navigational aid. Some teams have decided that this is a good opportunity to get some rest.
Good to go.
Good to go.
How are you doing?
Good. Not too bad. Much better now.
Get some sleep?
Yeah, I think 3 or 4 hours. Yeah, in this very comfortable bed. But yeah, just try and get warm now and get some food in, and some light I think is on its way to us, so off we go again.
What will you be thinking of on the way over the big hills?
Finish line.
By the time daylight comes to Mar Lodge, many teams have long since left on the next stage. Others are preparing for another 70 kilometres in the saddle. Mountain Hardware are still indoors though, and showing no signs of moving off. It doesn't look good.
And disappointing to see you here again.
Yeah, we're still here. Unfortunately, we didn't get away last night. After quite a long day yesterday, I sustained an injury during the canoeing section. I got my leg pinned under a rock for about 2 seconds as I got pushed downstream. Thankfully it released, but in the meantime it's damaged my shin quite badly. And I didn't really feel it because all the adrenaline, we were racing, and then we did a long bike ride with a canyon, and then I went for a run to the orienteering section. It started to get progressively worse, and then when I actually stopped, I suddenly just came down with shock. So the blood rushed from my head, and I actually just had to lie down for about an hour while my body sorted itself out, and the medic wasn't happy for me to continue.
It's obviously hard for Anthony, because you suddenly feel that you're the sort of fall guy in the team. What's it like being a team member when someone else has had to pull out, and that obviously affects your fortunes?
How does it feel? I do. You're gutted. You are gutted. But then, you look at it really. You got to look at it. You need to look after him. That's the priority, is each other. It doesn't matter about the race. So you are gutted. Like, I am totally gutted. This is the first time I've ever pulled out an event. And, but, priority's him. Let's get him better.
Kind thoughts, but no doubt whatever suffering the other teams are going through and still have to come, any team that drops out would rather be in amongst the rest and be part of the adventure. After 48 hours and around halfway through the race, that real adventure is just beginning.
It's starting to wear on us now, all right, we just got, I think, about an hour's sleep and a couple of little 10-minuters along the way, so things are slowing down in the head,
Time for an uplifting moment, perhaps. The stage takes them past the Queen's Estate at Balmoral, then over Mount Keene, which is one of the highest mountain bike routes in the country, as it crosses the 939-metre summit. Mount Keene is a mere pimple compared to the climb still to come. Soon the teams will tackle an 80-kilometre, that's 50-mile trekking stage with enough total ascent to take you more than halfway up Everest. The route includes the summit of Loch Nagar and some of the toughest terrain you'll find in the Cairngorms. This is the section that the organisers know will decide the race. And for those that just want to finish, this is the crux of the course. Join us after the break for the final push to Stirling. Welcome back to the Adidas Terrex Adventure 2012. Now all the teams are in the middle of the toughest section of all, over 100 kilometres of trekking across the Cairngorm mountain range. They've covered way more than half the distance, but the comforts of home and the finish line will still seem a long way away. Black Spout Gully leading to the ridge near the summit of Loch Nagar is the first major challenge of the trek. Adidas Terrex are the first team we find on the climb. Their major competition, Mountain Hardware, have retired from the race. But with FGS Nectar, Salomon Running Free of Canada and the Irish team Moxie Racers also still on the full course, they can't slacken off the pace. There are 35 teams still racing, and during the afternoon they'll all reach the spectacular summit of Loch Nagar.
Loch Nagar, thumbs up.
Negotiating the perilous ups and downs of the route requires non-stop navigational attention. It's just a few hours before nightfall when Adidas Terrex reach the next ridge.
The bit we just did was super vague, so anyone doing that over there could really struggle at night. But it's going to be a long old night for some people. So our aim is to go as fast as we can and get finished as early as possible.
Few people ever come here. Even today, the teams soon disappear into the wilderness. Just over halfway through this monster stage, Glenshee Ski Centre is the next opportunity to find some hot food and shelter. It's their 4th morning on the go when the Canadians come in and take advantage of the facilities, eager for sustenance after a journey that's tested them both physically and mentally.
Any bad moments last night, or you?
Oh, up on the, we couldn't see anything getting to those scrambles, and it was a bit dodgy, to be quite honest, and cliffing out and all that sort of stuff. It was wet and slippery, but we managed to just sort of work together and keep each other safe and climb up the hill.
There's still a long way to walk before they can mount the bikes. Perhaps the hardest thing is to get the sleep-deprived minds to think clearly and plan the best route to minimise the time spent on their feet. The feet themselves are a good indication of what's come before and a great way to put you off your food.
What's more important, food or sleep?
Sleep. Yeah, sleep.
And to get that sleep, many teams choose the quieter the mountainside rather than the transition area. It's more peaceful, and their competitors won't know their sleep strategy. But after a few blissful moments, they wake to the grim realities of aches, pains, blisters, dirt, damp, cold, and the fact that they've got to get up and get going for another 36 hours of the same punishment.
Everything still feeling strong, or is there any aches and pains anywhere?
I think we're a mess, basically. Roughly with a summary. You don't want to see my feet. You don't want to see Rosemary's feet. And everyone just hurts.
I've got to ask, what's going on?
Oh, knees. Done my knee a wee bit. I don't know what's actually wrong, it's all swollen up.
Now into their last full day's racing, there aren't many teams left who still look like they're in a race. The former world champions, though, are showing their class.
But a bit of a trudge of a night. Got up at 3 in the morning and dragged ourselves out of Glenshee and up into the mountains again. It's all worth it now.
Adidas Terrex are looking strong, still running well as they prepare for the effort of staying awake for one more night. As evening falls, some of the wildlife is waking up, some of it a welcome sight, some not. The transition at Glenfernet is where the teams will finally reach the end of the 80-kilometre trek. And those who can go on will reassemble their bikes and begin a cycle stage that will take them in the direction of the finish. Teams will be checking in and out of the transition all night, arriving on foot, leaving by bike, and trying to get some sleep where they can despite the attention of the midges.
I've been infested by midges. I can't open my eyes without them jumping in there. I've seen black flies, I've seen horse flies, I've seen deer flies, I've seen sand flies in New Zealand, but clouds and clouds of midges.
When they cycle away from here, most will be glad to get the weight off their feet. It took bloody mindedness to get this far.
They're just a bit sore, particularly when you put pressure on them, and then when you pop them, they sting quite a lot. And I'm now wishing I hadn't touched them. It's a catch-22 situation, so got a 2k bike push tonight, so I just wanted to make sure they'll be all right.
I think I have trench foot, so it's just severe pain in the feet from being waterlogged.
As tough as the race is, nobody would choose to stop. Jake Morgan of Team Endurance Life has no choice. Going this far, then dropping out, is difficult to cope with, but it's forced upon him.
We were just about to kind of head into the most uninhabited part of the course, quite a long way from a road, and my leg was not really working properly anymore. So despite the fact that I've got poles and stuff, I just couldn't really push myself uphill anymore.
Do they feel as bad as they look?
It ebbs and flows, for sure. On the trekking, I had a hard time keeping up with my teammates because the pain was so big. But we did a bit of a road rash at the end of the trek, which trashed our feet big time because they're so wet.
Is your mind playing games with you yet?
A little bit, a few hallucinations and things like that, but just it's always imagining something that, like a rock that looks like a polar bear.
We went through some areas where you've got where it's tree lined. I was absolutely convinced these were modern flats. Absolutely convinced. I'm looking for a restaurant or something. I've never experienced anything in my life, and I've done quite a number of different endurance events.
Every rock, every bit of grass inside the road turned into weird-looking creatures, and it was strange. Struggling to stay awake. We're talking to each other, and it almost felt like it was somebody else talking.
With daylight, it's time to concentrate on packing up the right equipment and beginning the next stage. 23 kilometres to reach the River Tay, where they'll face another tough canoe section. The finish is just a few hours away now, and teams can perhaps sense it ahead of them. But there are still challenges to come. The Tay looks calm enough at the top, but as they descend the river for a massive 58 kilometres, there will be some testing times ahead.
And hopefully no swimming is the main plan today, just because you just get cold.
One member of the Irish Army team is well motivated to avoid mistakes on this one.
There's plenty of water and nice few rapids, so hopefully we won't be swimming too many times. I'm the only one on the team without a wetsuit, so it's that bit more important for me not to swim.
There's nothing like a little bit of self-interest to keep the boats upright, but it won't be easy. The current may help them cover the distance, but it's also likely to create their problems. Some choose to run aground rather than take a soaking. For others, there's no avoiding trouble. Some stay upright, but take on too much water and get wet anyway. As it turns out, the Irish Army did need that extra wetsuit in the end. Daniel finding out that in the couple of days since their last encounter, the Tay hasn't got any warmer. At least this team avoid a dunking, though the boats don't. And there's delight for those who take on the most treacherous parts with only a splashing to show for it. Finally, the teams can go ashore again when they reach Perth and now start thinking about finishing the race. For Adidas Terrex, there are just 55 kilometres of biking back to the finish in Stirling, and there's no way they can lose the race now. And there's no way that anyone who's got this far will fail to see it through to the end. After 5 days and well over 300 miles, the Wallace Monument comes back into view. Stirling is a relief to all. The gateway to the Highlands is now the place to savour the 5 days in the wilds of Scotland that they've just enjoyed. Adidas Terrex controlled the race from start to finish and are deserved winners.
What does this one mean to you?
It means a lot, really. I knew it'd be a great course from teammate Nick planning, and yeah, it was really nice to come here and bring it home. Really, we've seen some great places. I mean, the canoeing today has been really, really good. It's been a real journey, and it really stacks up well with any races anywhere around the world.
It's really rare for a race to go to plan, and actually this one has. So you know, everything's just happened at the right time, and been in the right places, done the right things, and it's been great.
FGS Nectar are next over the line, second place, tasting sweet for a team with 1 Kiwi and 3 Brits, including Andrew Mitchell.
This is my best race by a long way. We've gelled so well as a team. We've had problems, we've got through them, and we've all been very evenly matched. So we've been biking high speed for hours and hours across fantastic Scottish countryside.
For the rest of the day and into the evening, the remainder of the teams will enjoy their well-earned finishing moment. Physically, they've completed the equivalent of multiple Ironman triathlons. But on top of that, they've had to deal with fierce weather, freezing water, and employ outdoor skills and levels of endurance that few athletes ever have to call on. Racers from all around Europe and the world came to compete and complete the journey, with Ireland, Denmark, France, the USA, Belgium and New Zealand represented. But it's the Canadians, Salomon Running Free, who claim third place.
The reason why we do this type of sport at all is because of the culture, this place you come to. I mean, the organizers here, Stirling Castle, Wallace Monument, you're like shaking your head of all the attention to detail, that it's pretty spectacular.
Crazy experience. Canyoning, mountain biking, running, everything a big boy could want to do. Incredible. Best 5 days ever.
Amazing race. Like, probably take a few days to sink in, like, but just the whole thing, like, you know, it was great from start to finish. The amount of highs and lows you go through over the whole race is just incredible, you know.
This was the longest race I've ever done, and I haven't been able to bend my ankle for the last 48 hours, so it feels pretty incredible to cross the line.
This is adventure racing. This is what it's all about, getting out there, racing together as a team, navigating your own way around the course, sharing all the good times and bad times, and you couldn't beat it.
It's a journey. It's just not. It's also it's a journey within yourself as well. It's you know, it's in here. It's in here. Everything's in here. It's just brilliant.